G'day everyone, it's Curtis here and welcome to an On The Back Wheel video. Today I'm reviewing the CF Moto 800MT Touring. Hey, before we get into it, make sure you click that subscribe button. Every subscriber helps grow the channel and create more content like this. The 800MT Touring is CF Moto's take on the mid-size adventure bike market. And I have to say, after having the bike for 2 weeks, I am impressed. Let's go over the design and look at the bike. I have to say they've done a really good job. This is a great looking bike. It looks fantastic. I've been asking everyone who sees the bike, what do you think of the bike? And generally everyone thinks it is a fantastic looking bike and it looks a lot more expensive than it is. So what is the CF Moto 800MT Touring? Well, it's CF Moto's take on the mid-size adventure bike market. It's more adventure touring than full-on adventure bike. Think more your V-Strom and stuff like that. Not your Tenere or KTM 890 Adventure R. It is priced very competitively. This is 14,500 Australian dollars right away. That is very cheap. If you're in the US, it's roughly 9,800 with taxes, out the door registered. You're riding out of the dealership. Let's talk about its features. It is absolutely stock, this bike. We've got spoked rims, crash bars stock, auxiliary lights stock, LED headlights, an adjustable windscreen, heated grips, a nice big TFT dash, heated seat as well, and an up and down quick shift up. Another couple of things we have is dual USB charger here with a rubber cover to keep everything dry. And coming over to this side, we have a 12-volt port. Everything you see here comes stock on the bike, including the pannier racks on the back. I mean, this thing is absolutely stacked. And we've also got a center stand there to make changing the tires and servicing your bike easier. I have to say, CF Moto have done a good job with the design and looks of the bike. I think it's a nice looking bike and it's got some clever design features as well. Let's talk about the engine. What we're getting here is a KTM design engine. It's a parallel twin, roughly 799 cc's that produces 95 horsepower. Now, you notice that I said it is KTM designed. Well, this motor is found in the KTM Duke 790 and KTM 790 Adventure. CF Moto actually makes the engines for a lot of KTM bikes, and this is one of those engines. So basically what you're getting is a KTM 790 engine for about $10,000 cheaper. Not bad at all. The engine is punchy, very versatile, and has some good power up top. It's not going to pull your arms off, but it is a nice engine. When you really rev it out, it does have some good yank, and off-road it has more than enough power. In fact, probably too much at times off-road when you really get into it. On-road, it's a nice motor with ample power to overtake people. It's nice and smooth. Let's say you're cruising on the highway at 100 kilometers an hour, 110, even 120. It's nice and smooth. There's no vibrations. It's not buzzy. There's just a nice little thrum from that parallel twin. It's a very smooth motor, and it sounds nice. I like motors that sound nice. That's important to me, and it's a nice sounding motor. Overall, I like this motor a lot. Performs well. The power is about in that sweet spot. Could use a tiny bit more for me throughout the rev range. You just got to rev it a bit much sometimes on the road, but overall, I'm very happy with the performance of this motor. It suits the bike pretty well, perfectly. The fueling overall is very good. However, I do have some nitpicks with it. Let's say you're in third gear doing about 50 kilometers an hour. It will lurch a little bit. It's in that kind of emissions sweet spot. And unfortunately, with how emissions are going, it's very common nowadays. So the fueling can be a little bit finicky between about 3,500 RPM when you're holding a constant, very small throttle opening. When you're in high gears, no issues at all. First and second gear, you can get it to be a little bit on-off at times. Not all the time, just every now and again, it will be a little bit finicky. If you're off-road in first gear, let's say you're doing a downhill section and you're trying to modulate the throttle, it can get a little bit finicky. What I mean by that is small throttle touches, it kind of lurches around a little bit. That's just in first gear. Click it up to second, it's no issues, but then you got too much momentum going down hills. Another little thing is, it takes a little bit to get off the line. Let's say you're in first gear, taking off. It feels like you just got to give it a lot of revs. This is really noticeable off-road. So let's say you're doing slow off-road work. You're stuck on a hill and you go to take off. You've really got to give it the beans to get anywhere. It feels quite doughy. Once you're moving, it's completely fine. It's just that initial part where you got to take off. I think with 1 or 2 software updates, this will be pretty well spot on. At the moment, it is very good, just not perfect. There's those couple of issues I mentioned. The gearbox overall is a buttery smooth gearbox. I really like how it performs. It's a nice gearbox. However, I have had issues with the up and down quick shifter. What do I mean by issues? Well, sometimes it just doesn't work, so you try and click up and nothing happens. Other times you will click up and you can feel it's trying to change gears, but nothing's happened. So what it'll do is go go, 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 like the ignition cut's happening, but it's not changing gears. Downshifter overall seems to work really well most of the time. I like the downshifter. However, that upshifter, as I have had some issues with, so I'm just going to mention that. Off-road, I stopped using it altogether because I found that I was concentrating on the quick shifter and not my riding, so I was catching me out a little bit. Like, let's say you're trying to bang up through the gears and then a corner comes up, you're trying to bang up a gear, have it lurch forward, it won't change gears, and then you're offline and it loses your concentration. So I ended up not using it. Thankfully, the gearbox is buttery smooth when you're using the clutch. It's a really nice gearbox, just let down by that quick shifter. I have contacted CF Moto and they were great. They tried to help me out, but they said, look, unless you drop it in, we can't really tell. And when I've got a bike for 2 weeks, it doesn't give you a lot of time to drop it in, waste a couple of days, and then I am not able to ride the bike. So overall, I like the engine. It's got plenty of power. Could do with a little more grunt every now and again. And the fueling just needs 1 or 2 updates. I think it'll be perfect. And the gearbox, when you use the clutch, very smooth. Just a couple of issues with the quick shifter. Overall, I like the engine though. Talk about the handling and suspension of the 800MT. I have to say I'm very impressed with how this bike handles and the suspension. Let's start off with the handling. This bike on the road feels light and nimble. It's easy to throw around. I like the handling in general. Tips in the corners nicely. The bike is 225 kilos wet, full of fuel and ready to ride, but it feels great on the road. It feels light and nimble, stable as well. It's a very stable bike. Let's say you're cruising down the highway, rock solid, no issues at all. The suspension is what has surprised me the most. It's adjustable suspension, both front and rear. On the front, it's adjustable for compression and rebound and preload. On the back, it's adjustable for preload and dampening. When I first got the bike, the settings were a bit all over the place, so I set them to the recommended CF Moto settings, which are right in the middle. I think it's got about 20 clicks, give or take 1 or 2. Set it to 10 for everything. And it has been nearly spot on, especially for the road. I mean, if you're on the road, it soaks up everything nicely. You hit a big G out or something, it'll compress nice and smooth and it won't rebound fast. It's very nice. I like the suspension. Off-road, it's really good to a point. So let's say you're doing slow to moderate riding, fantastic. If you start to ride faster on fire trails or even a bit slower and you hit like a big washout or a sharp bump, the suspension is going to blow through, especially the forks, and it makes a big clatter at times, and it feels like you're going to break the bike. It kind of goes bang and blows through. That's where you hit your limitations. Oh, bang! If you're doing small erosion mound jumps and stuff like that, handles it great. Absolutely no issues. It's when you start to pick up the pace, yeah, things get a bit loose. Whee! Into it. Go on, feed it, feed it, feed it. Whee! Woo! I ended up just slowing down the rebound a tiny bit off-road because I found that really helped, because when you picked up the pace, it'll get a bit loose and woolly. I mean, this is a 225 kilo bike. It's not really designed for a lot of the stuff I was doing, but it handled it great. Like, I was very surprised. Would I do that stuff all the time on it? No. That's just not what this bike is designed for. Did I do it? Hell yeah, and I had an absolute blast, and it did it fine. As you know, I like to ride my adventure bikes off-road, and this overall really surprised me. A couple of issues is, like, the first issue is the weight. It's 225 kilograms. Overall, it's fine, but it does get tiring, and that is exacerbated because, I'll explain why. This section here, when you're standing off-road, there's nowhere to grab with your legs, so you end up using your arms a lot. So I think this could really benefit from some grip tape here or something like that, or even some steg pegs, because that's just very tiring off-road. But overall, I have to say, the handling is probably one of the best features of this bike. It handles great on-road, it's stable, it's comfortable, and it's got surprising capability off-road, more than you would think. The next thing I want to talk about is the riding position. Overall, it's a really nice place to be. I immediately felt comfortable on the bike, and over these 2 weeks, I've gotten more comfortable on it. It's a nice place to be. A couple of things I have noticed is, for me, the seat is too low. When I first rode it, it wasn't an issue. However, over time on longer rides, it does feel a bit cramped. I am 6 foot and 90 kilos, and it's just a bit cramped here in the knee section. They do a higher seat. I would definitely get that straight away. I believe it's about 35 millimeters taller, which would bring it up to about here, which would be nigh on spot on for me. The standing position feels nice. As I mentioned, you know, there's nowhere to grip with your legs. I think that higher seat would definitely help with that. And also, it's a bit too low for me. So off-road, I stand a lot. And let's say I want to sit on the cruisier, fire trails, or when I'm having to blat through some corners and stuff and they're a bit smoother, I want to sit down and nail it and have some fun. It's a really long way down for me, and it feels kind of awkward once you've been standing for a long time. I think the higher seat would make that absolutely perfect for me. If you're shorter, probably not going to be an issue at all. In fact, I think the riding position for shorter people is really nice. Yes, the seat is quite wide, but I touch flat with both feet, no issues. So if you're shorter, you're going to have 1 foot down on the ground, which is all you need. You only need 1 foot with tippy toe. You'll be very comfortable on this bike. The bars, I really like the bars. They're a nice shape, they're a nice sweep, the width's great, the height is pretty well perfect. So overall, I really like the riding position. If it had that higher seat, it would definitely help. Speaking of seats, it's heated. The heater works absolutely fantastic. It's one of those things, you think, what do I need a heated seat for on a motorbike? Once you have it, it's hard to go back, I can tell you that. But the seat on this, really high quality, nice and grippy, and comfortable. It's wide and cushiony, and the pillion seat is exactly the same. So if you are doing some pillion riding, they're gonna like sitting back here. The foot pegs are pretty good. When it gets wet, yeah, they're not great, but they are wide and they're a good width. See, it's got this rubber insert mount here. You will be able to pull it out. I didn't because I had a quick tug by hand. That sounds a bit sexual, doesn't it? But I wasn't able to get it out, so I just left it, you know, not being my bike. I'll clarify that with them when I drop it off. But the foot pegs are quite good, except when it gets muddy. They are way better than my KLR foot pegs, I'll tell you that for sure. Pillion pegs, they're nice, they're simple, they're easy to use, and a good thing for someone like me who doesn't ever really have a pillion, you've got 2 bolts here, on the other side you take them straight off. Unfortunately, the bike does have a little bit of buffeting at highway speeds. The windscreen is adjustable, but I found even at the highest setting, it's just a little bit too low for me, because I'm sitting down, I'm on my hair, it's really windy here, so I'm sitting down and I have to like duck behind it, and it's a little bit better. You sit up, you can just hear it go brrr, and hit you in the head a bit. It's not bad, but it's definitely not great. Let's talk about the brakes. At the front and rear, we have J1 brakes. We've got big dual disc on the front. We come around to the back, we've got a single disc. It is ABS, and unfortunately you cannot turn the ABS off. The only way to do it is if you put the bike up at a center stand, start the bike and run it through the gears, then it has a brain fart and turns off. Not ideal, but if you really want to, that's the way to do it. I don't recommend it, and I won't be doing that. The front brakes, when I first got on it, I thought, oh gee, these brakes aren't great at all. There isn't a lot of initial bite. Once I got used to them, there's actually a lot of power there. Just on the road, there isn't a lot of initial grab. This is actually fantastic off-road, because without that initial grab, let's say you grab a handful or a bit more than you should, it's not locking up the front, it's nice and progressive. Now I've gotten used to them, they're actually really good brakes. They're actually very good brakes. Just when you first got on it, you'll be like, oh, there's not a lot here, so you got to grab it a bit more than you usually would. The rear brake is fine, it's a rear brake. You know, it does the job. ABS is a bit intrusive on the rear. I find most bikes are like that, which is really frustrating. Speaking of the ABS, off-road, it's really good overall. You won't have many issues. Now, if you do come in too hot to a corner, it's gonna lock up a bit and then run on, which is really frustrating. I wish you could turn it off, but you can't. Having a good set of tires like this really helps. It really helps. In the mud, yeah, you're gonna have some more issues. It would be great if we were able to disable the ABS or at least have an off-road setting on the dash. Unfortunately, we don't. I have to say, I didn't really have any issues off-road. There's a couple of times it did run on, but I did some serious stuff off-road, performed great. So overall, I like the brakes. They got good power. Just be aware that initially they don't feel like they have a lot of bite. So the bike comes with crash protection. We've got upper bars here, lower bars here. We come around to the back. The pannier racks kind of act like crash protection too. We've got this great grab handle and also a really sturdy rack. Now I had the pleasure of crashing while I had the CF Moto, and I have to say the crash bars did a really good job. Let's have a look. So we come down here. You'll see here we got some nice scratches from Curtis. So mine was only a small drop, but I have to say the crash protection did a great job. You know, I didn't scratch any of the fairings, which is absolutely fantastic. You can see here you got some scratches on the handguards. If you're doing proper off-road work, I'd probably replace these, but for the bike's purpose, I would leave it completely how it is, including the bash plate underneath. This is kind of a thin aluminium jobby they got on the bottom. For this bike's intended purpose though, I would leave that as is. You know, this thing is well set up to just get on and ride and tour as is. Let's touch on the switch gear. It is all nice quality. We also have cruise control, which is easy to use. We've got our on function, off function. Then on the top here, it's got set and reserve and your up and down speeds. That works well. It will hunt a little bit every now and again, especially on downhills. It'll get a bit fast, but overall, it's really nice. I like that it has it there. Here's your dash. It's very nice, clear and easy to use. I like the dash. It looks fantastic. It's easy to go through all the settings, look at everything you want. It's also got tire pressure monitoring system. I mean, this thing has everything, absolutely everything. One cool thing is you can also hook up your phone. So you hook up your phone, you can answer telephone calls and everything. And it also has navigation if you hook your phone up to it. Man, it's got everything. I really like the dash. It's clear and easy to use. So the bike has two engine maps, Sport and Rain. I think Rain mode is basically a waste of time, but I did use this and it does work quite well. If you're in like slippery or snotty stuff, it could be quite good to use. The throttle response is really smooth on it and progressive. Or if you're just tired and on the way home or it's raining or something, yeah, it would be good to use. Personally, I just left it in Sport. I think Sport's completely fine, just be a bit easier on the throttle, but the option is there if you want to use it. The clutch on this is light and easy to use. I found off-road quite easy to use 2 fingers so you can hold on to bars a bit better, and it's also adjustable. Nice. So the big question I have in each review is, would I buy one? And yes, I would buy a CF Moto 800MT Touring. It has surprised me to no end and I am very impressed. The motor's good, the gearbox is nice, it handles fantastic. I'm really impressed with the handling. The suspension's good and it's comfortable. I mean, it ticks a lot of boxes. Should you buy one and who should buy one? This bike's in a really unique place due to its price. I mean, its competitors are much more expensive. The next adventure bike up is the Tenere 700, which is, to me, is more adventure focused, less touring and more off-road based. But it's $4,500 more. You're not getting one for less than 19,000 Australian dollars now. It's a lot more money. You go down, we got the KLR 650. That's a different kind of bike. That's more of a dual sport adventure bike, so much more off-road focused. And frankly, it doesn't really compare. This is a twin, it's a single. Different kind of bike altogether. Really, it's going up against the V-Stroms. So you got the 650 and the 1000. So that's a bigger question. Your V-Stroms, you are getting that just known reliability. You know that Suzuki motor's been around forever and it's going to last a long time. This is your KTM motor. So that's the big difference. For me, I think this is a really good bike though, and I can just 100% recommend one for the price. I mean, for $14,500 right away, this is a really good adventure bike that ticks a lot of boxes. All right, that's it for me. If you like my review on the CF Moto 800MT Touring, hit that like and subscribe button. If you have any questions about it whatsoever, put them in the comments down below. I'll get back to you, or hit me up on social media. All right, that's it from me. Keep it on the back wheel, everyone. Catches.